Hello. Now, it's no secret that I don't like this government. I didn't like the last one very much either, and I'm not sure who's coming in next, but I don't like what we've got. I don't agree with it. I don't stand with it. I feel like every decision they make is purely for their own benefit or of a wider audience, but it's certainly not of the people in the UK. And I stand firm by that. I don't apologise for it. I don't make any excuses for it. I think they're shafting us. So I find it, every time I read the news, every time I listen to the news, I find my blood pressure going up, and I just find a lot of the time going, how can you do that? Why are you doing that? Are you stupid? And, for the answer for the latter, I think yes. So I've been mulling over the VAT on education court case. I've been reading reams of notes on it because I've really wanted to understand the mentality of the government. I've wanted to understand what kind of people would tax education, what kind of people would knowingly stop vulnerable children accessing the education that they need. Now, we know that's Labour. And the judges said that's Labour. The judges said that this would knowingly discriminate against the most vulnerable children in society. The judges said that the state of the SEND system in state education was diabolical. It said the most up-to-date evidence about the reality of SEND provision in mainstream state education schools in this country, as well as the formal framework, is overwhelmingly negative. I mean, that's an understatement, I would say. And yet here we are pushing a group of children that are in the independent sector receiving care for their special educational needs. We're pushing them into the state sector where we've openly admitted, the judges have openly admitted that their needs will not be met. So this was a court case about protecting human rights. This was a court case brought to the High Court by claimants who felt that their children's human rights were being violated. And in conclusion, the judges said, not just yours, but effectively everybody in state as well. You're not getting what you should get. You're not getting the education you deserve. So this is sort of universally accepted. But it's left us in a position of, well, we need to bring down the independent sector to the state level because it's not fair if the independent sector have got it and the state sector haven't got it. And by bringing it down, what that looks like is we're flooding the state sector now with the kids from Indy that can no longer afford to stay there. And they need that special educational needs help as well. They are now vying for the same help that the 1.1 million kids in state education were already vying for. Now, we know there wasn't enough education for them in the first place. Now there's even less education for them because there's just not enough to go round. There wasn't enough to go round. There's really not enough to go round. And, the court said in its findings that creating an exemption for children without SEND is unfair to the 1.1 million children with SEND in the state sector. And because such an exemption would be costly and leave less public money available for other pressing public purposes, including increasing provision for the pupils with SEND in the state sector. So again, it's saying, well, it would cost us too much to exempt you from a tax that wasn't imposed when you started school and wasn't imposed when you wanted to join the independent sector. So to unravel that so that you don't have to pay that, even though we recognise that that's why you're there and we recognise that you're not going to get the help that you need in the state sector, but to unravel that would be expensive, regardless of the fact that it's very expensive for your family. And if it's crap in state, then really it should be crap in the independent sector as well. All children should just have crap SEND care. So we're going back to that hold who's got the advantage. And somebody said a really good analogy. If you've got two children and two parents and one child reads to their parent at night and the other parent doesn't read to their child at night, so one parent reads to their child, yeah, that's right, then the parent who reads to their child at night, should they stop so that they're not unfairly disadvantaging the parent who doesn't, or the child who doesn't have a book read to them at night? It's as simple as that. What do we do? Do we just disadvantage all children so that none of them get the help and the support that they need? In which case, as a human rights case, we're effectively violating everyone's human rights. So we've gone to court to fight for human rights, to understand that they're actually being violated across the board, and the SEND system, the state system, isn't fit for purpose. So now what we want to do is put more children in a system that's not fit for purpose. And the government think this is a win. The government thinks this is a great idea. The government thinks we want to tax these posh rich people, and we want to tax their aspiration. We want to tax their choice. We want to tax their freedom of educational choice for their children. We basically just want to hurt them as much as we can because somebody else hasn't got it and we didn't have it. I mean, it's widely regarded as the policy of spite. And there's very few people, even Labour backbenchers, who wouldn't say, yeah, this was just to really hurt them. And it's being followed through since the court proceedings. It's being followed through by a group of Labour MPs who are gloating. I mean, Bridget Phillipson can't hide the smirk off her face. But now the issue is, well, you've kind of dug yourself your own grave because now you've got to prove that state can cope with this. So whereas before you were saying, you know, it was scaremongering. I mean, one Labour MP has said that the parents, that the claimants went crying to the courts. That's what they think of you and I. That's what Labour thinks of the voting public. That somebody who felt their child's human rights were being violated went crying to the courts. I mean, it's no wonder that the rape gangs inquiry is a whitewash, is it? Because if we say that parents who feel as though their children's rights are being violated are crying to the courts, what does that say to you about their morals and ethics? To me, it says they don't have any. To me, it says they're really happy to persecute a group of children who are in a system because their parents felt it was better for them, and in some cases the state felt it was better for them because the state gave them an EHCP that named the independent school because they knew that the state couldn't provide the care that they needed. And of course we know that EHCPs are on the way out now as well. Bridget doesn't want them because if we haven't got EHCPs then we don't need to send children to independent schools. So the more that she can corrode and erode the independent sector, the better. And I am gobsmacked, as I often am with things that Labour do, that a woman in the role of Education Secretary, who, by the way, voted against an investigation into the rape gangs, so she voted against those children that were victims of the rape gangs having the justice that they deserved, although now that we know that this appears to be a complete whitewash anyway, and it's not actually really an investigation, and it's not investigating the corrupt policemen and social workers and counsellors and everyone around that grooming gang, rape gang environment. We know that we're not doing that. We're just looking at the top level kind of like easy stuff. But Bridget Phillipson, our Education Secretary, voted against that inquiry. So we've got a woman who didn't want children who had been abused in the most heinous way to have justice, and we've now got a woman who has decided that it's okay for vulnerable children who are just about breaking even in terms of their education to be whipped into the state sector and absolutely fail with the rest of them. That's Labour's way. Bring everybody down to the same level, and then it's controlled, isn't it? It's controlled by the state. It's controlled by them. They will tell you what your special needs are. They will tell you what you need in education. They will tell you what education you will have. And in some places, they will take the most dangerous kids out of a school and put it in a perfectly well-running nice school so that that can become the most dangerous school as well. They are toying and experimenting with your children. They are absolutely showing no regard for your role as a parent wanting the best thing for your child. We are taught that aspiration is a bad word. We are being taught that aspiration can only be for 93% of the child population. It cannot be for the 7% of the child population. We can only have aspiration if we're in state education. If we're not in state education, you may not be aspirational. And we now don't think that we can even be aspirational in state education. So I feel very passionately about this, and so I realise that I talk about education a lot, but if we look at how we will deal with and how we will respond to and act towards vulnerable children, that tells me everything I need to know about what this government is prepared to do for the rest of us. And it's an utter shit show.